Today, we dive into the story of Major General David Ejoor, one of Nigeria's most remarkable military officers. At the height of the January 1966 coup, when chaos and assassinations were sweeping across the nation, Ejoor stood his ground. Against all odds, he managed to resist the plotters. But his defiance came at a cost. He narrowly escaped death, and his survival was nothing short of miraculous. In this video, we uncover how he stood firm when Nigeria's future was on the line, and how his courage helped to shape the course of history. Hi guys, welcome to Afriverse Historic. On today's episode, we look at the story of David Ejoor, the former military governor of the Midwestern region, how he survived and resisted the January 1st, 1966 coup. Do stay tuned and enjoy the ride. Major General David Ejoor, OFR, GCON, was born on January 10, 1932 in Ovu, Ethiopia, East Local Government Area of Delta State, Nigeria. An Urhobo by ethnicity, David Ejoor attended Ovu CMS School in 1939, Baptist School Ovu in 1940, Native Administrative School Orirope in 1946 to 1937, Government College Willie from 1948 to 1952. Ejoor was outstanding at Government College Ughelli, where he won a scholarship. After college, he didn't have money to pursue university education, so his principal gave him a letter to the controller of customs in Warri. When the controller read it, he said, "Your principal said I should give you a job." He asked him, "When are you starting?" To which young Ejoor replied, "Now." After a brief stint with the Nigerian Customs Service, he took the entrance examination to join the army and was successful. In 1953 to 1954, he proceeded to Teshi, Ghana for initial training at the Regular Officers Training School. After 6 months, he was selected to go to England to do the Officers Cadet Training at Eaton Hall, Chester, United Kingdom in 1954, and at Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst, United Kingdom from 1955 to 1956, where he was commissioned by the Queen. He returned to Nigeria on the 22nd of January 1957 as a lieutenant, serving in Kaduna and Ibadan. Between 1957 and 1959, the responsibility of securing Nigeria's border with Cameroon fell on him. He commanded the Army Guard at the historic event of Nigeria's independence in 1960. He also served on the United Nations Peacekeeping Force in Congo from December 1960 to July 1961, following which he was promoted to the rank of Major. Ejoor later claimed that then Lieutenant Colonel Chukwuemeka Odumegwu had approached him and future military head of state Yakubu Gowon to discuss a coup plot amid the 1964 election crisis. 1 week before the January 1966 coup d'etat, Ejoor, who had recently succeeded Adekunle Fajuyi as commander of the Enugu-based 1st Battalion, was in Lagos attending a brigade conference along with many other senior officers. If you find this video worthwhile, please take out some time to smash a like and subscribe to the channel, as it goes a long way in supporting our efforts. Thank you. Now let's get back to the video. The turning point in Ejoor's career occurred on 15 January 1966, when the first military coup swept away the first post-independence government. Ejoor, then a lieutenant colonel and commander of the Army Battalion in Enugu, was the first in the offensive that foiled the coup and saved the life of Dr. Michael Okpara, the premier of the Eastern region. On Saturday, July 15, 1966, at around 7 a.m. at the Ikoyi Hotel, Ikoyi, Lagos, Lieutenant Colonel Ejoor heard a loud bang on his door. "Who is, for God's sake, banging on my door this early morning?" A voice roared from inside the hotel room. "Oga, open the door. There's trouble," the man replied. "What the?" Lieutenant Colonel David Ejoor stopped in the middle of his words as he noticed it was his driver who had been banging on the door. "But I told you to get enough rest. I don't want you sleeping on the wheels while you are driving me to Enugu," he replied. "It is not that, sir," the driver said. "The Prime Minister and some senior officers had been kidnapped by some soldiers. I even heard some of these officers had been killed," replied his driver. "What? Are you sure of what you are saying? Hope you are not drunk this early morning," Ejoor asked with a surprised look. "I am sure, sir. I slept over at Apapa. There have been troop movements up and down since 3 a.m. I later heard they came here at this hotel. That's why I came rushing down to check on you." "Yes, I agree now that you are not drunk," Ejoor said, nodding his head. "I'm not drunk, sir. That's the truth," replied the driver. While Ejoor was still waving off his driver, contending he was drunk, Lagema's driver came rushing in and showed the men bullet-casing shells he found in front of his superior's hotel room. The three men then went to Lagema's room upstairs to find traces of blood which had congealed on the corridor, and the telephone hook was still dangling. Flustered and fluttered, Ejoor staggered back to his room, changing into full military kit, and directed his driver to 8 Ikoyi Crescent, Ikoyi, Lagos, the home of the Adjutant General, the officer who handled the deaths of soldiers in the army, to take some of the blood samples to really determine whether it was Lagema that had been murdered in cold blood. Ejoor was still skeptical of the events he just found himself in. He wanted answers. Who could have had the audacity to murder a commander of a whole battalion? He thought to himself as his driver approached the residence of Lieutenant Colonel James Yakubu Pam. Once Ejoor saluted the GOC on sighting him as he entered the battalion headquarters conference room. Ironsi, who had his back to Ejoor, turned on seeing him, quickly drew out his pistol and pointed it at him. "Ha! David, who sent you to kill me?" he asked. Ejoor was stunned, but he certainly replied, "No, sir. Why would I kill you? You are my commanding officer. Whatever it is, I'm with you." The GOC stared at him for a moment, read his body language, and then hoisted his weapon. "I am sorry I had to react that way. The events of the past few hours had taken a toll on me. I don't know who to trust. In fact, I do not trust any officer right now," General Ironsi said. "It's alright, sir. That's why I'm here. But first of all, I need to know what is really going on. Lagema is dead. Pam is unaccounted for, and I found Brigadier's residence deserted. I then went over to your house, but Madame directed me here." "Sir, what is going on?" Ejoor asked, with a confused look. "Lagema is dead?" Ironsi asked as he sank into his chair. "Affirmative, sir. He was murdered in front of his room. I saw it myself." "How did you know that, David?" Ironsi stood up and towered over the young officer, who did not flinch at all. "We lodged in the same hotel room, sir," Ejoor replied. "How then did you escape?" Ironsi asked with a suspicious look. "I didn't, sir. I never encountered the killers. I never knew until this morning, when my driver came banging at my door. I changed my hotel room, so they must have missed me if I was a target in the first place," Ejoor answered boldly. Ejoor was right. As the commanding officer of the 1st Battalion in Enugu, he had received a signal in the name of Brigadier Zachary Mahimalabi on the 9th of January that he was invited to a 3-day brigade training conference on the 12th to the 14th of January in Apapa, Lagos. On the 10th of January, Ejoor left for Lagos and was booked into room 17 of the Ikoyi Hotel. However, when he returned from the day's program on 13th of January, the air conditioning system had been left on all day, which caused the room to become extremely cold. He then opened the windows to thaw the coldness out of the room after he had changed into his nightwear, only to discover his privacy could easily be seen by anyone in the adjacent building. He loved his privacy and would not like to encounter prying eyes. The following morning, he asked for a change of room at the reception. After the conference training of 14 January, he went to Mahimalabi's residence for the cocktail at 7 p.m. and had planned to leave around 9 p.m. because he had to return to Enugu by road the next morning, but left around 11 p.m. The next morning, he woke up to his driver banging on his door. After Ejoor assured arrogancy of his loyalty, the GOC ordered Ejoor back to Enugu to command his 1st Battalion. Arriving by plane just before noon, Ejoor found out that his battalion had heeded orders from coup plotter Ifejuna to take over key installations and arrest government ministers without realizing they were abetting a coup. Ejoor ordered those soldiers back to the barracks, deployed future minister and then Lieutenant Yohana Kure to prevent any attempt to break jailed opposition leader Obafemi Awolowo out of prison, and dispatched future chief of staff, Supreme Military Headquarters, and then Lieutenant Shehu Musa Yaradua to arrest Lieutenant Aloysius Abuaka, the officer who rallied Ifejuna's orders to the battalion. As the morning lights came and flushed away the stench of the night, Lagosians and Abeokutas woke up thinking the day was like any other. It would take another 7 hours, at around 2:30 p.m, for Radio Nigeria to announce the coup to the general public. The vehicles coming from Abeokuta to Lagos overtook a column to slow-moving armored vehicles, which Ademoyega and Anuforo had mobilized. In Ikeja cantonment, rumors blazed around like wildfire that mutineers had been seen coming in mass to attack Lagos. The cantonment was in a state of heightened security. Bullet-resisting fighting positions were constructed with sandbags as strategic positions. When Ejoor reached the cantonment gate, the sentry did not allow him out. He told Ejoor he was under strict instruction to refuse any soldier from going out or coming in without authorization. Ejoor had to go back to fetch Iboba. Ejoor was a lieutenant colonel, Iboba was a major. Circumstance had turned the chain of command onto his head, like the grave condition that made the crayfish to bend. Something strange then happened. Major John Obienu turned up at the battalion's gate, wanting to enter. When Obienu woke up in the morning, he tried to find out if the revolution proceeded without him and if he might still fit the scheme of things. So he went to the airport junction. There was no sign of his squadron. He then dashed to Ikeja cantonment. He saw none of his ferrets or Saladin and was making inquiries. All of a sudden, he was recognized by one of his sentries as the officer commanding the unit rumored to be coming to Abeokuta to attack. Iboba, who came to the gates to authorize Ejoor's exit, ordered guns trained on Obienu. He protested his innocence. He swore he didn't know anything about the mutiny, nor that his risk squadron was making their way from Abeokuta. He said that he went to Mai Malari's party, slept in a friend's place in Shomolu, and was there trying to go back to Abeokuta. Liar, Iboba screamed at him. How is it possible that your unit was bringing their firepower to come and fight in a pre-planned mutiny and you, their commanding officer, did not know? NCOs do not mobilize for actions if they are not instructed by their OC. Who authorized them? Iboba asked. Obienu swore he did not know anything. Ejoor then intervened. He suggested Obienu went ahead on Abeokuta Road to neutralize his renegade unit. Obienu replied, without troops to back him up, it would be unwise to go out there to stop them. That sounded reasonable to Ejoor, and that confirmed he actually wasn't part of the mutiny. Had he been part of the rebels, he wouldn't have hesitated to go out there to meet his unit. Ejoor said, henceforth, Obienu switched loyalty and joined the loyal forces trying to neutralize the revolution. Not wanting further delay to the airport, Ejoor left them. In his account of what happened that morning, Ejoor wrote, quote, "As we approached the junction of the road that led into the Ikeja GRA and the airport road, I saw 3 artillery trucks approaching us. I immediately sensed that this was what Major Iboba had talked about. I felt cornered as I had no way of knowing how these troops would react to me, whether they would take me as a foe or a friend. I had some quick thinking and decided to put the troop at some psychological disadvantage. Accordingly, I stood in the middle of the road and held up my hand, indicating to them to stop. As the lead vehicle got close and stopped, I snapped at the troops. I asked why they took so long to arrive, thereby slowing down their operations. The trick worked. They straight away went on the defensive, explaining that they had some problems with tires and fuel. I accepted their explanation and warned them that there were to be no delays. Go straight to Ikeja cantonment and get your next orders, I said, and proceeded leading them to the barracks as the traffic cleared for the military trucks. They got to the battalion headquarters. I gave orders that all troops escorted there be immediately disarmed and arrested. While this was being done, I resumed my journey to the airport. Thus, by sheer accident, I was involved for the first major arrest of those involved in the coup of 15 January 1966. End of quote. In a widely read article held with creative thinking in the influential Army journal, the Nigerian magazine, Ejoor lamented the absence of active creativity in the army. He wrote, "Creativity is necessarily the lifeblood of a successful business concern. This is because competition in civilian life is so severe that a heavy premium is placed on ideas of all kinds. In the military world in peacetime, we have not the same spur of competition, and yet if we cannot instill a creative atmosphere within the armed forces, we are in danger of failing both in war and peace. I believe the classic example of an army which failed because it was in a rut and lacking ideas was the French at the beginning of World War II. Creativity inspired Ejoor to distance himself from Ironsi and Nzeogwu. It led him to single-handedly neutralize the rebel detachment from Abeokuta, which Obienu, their commander, could not even do. Creativity would also save him from another assassination plot by Ifa Juna awaiting him in the east. Within a few days, the coup was successfully repressed, and Agui Ironsi took power as the first military head of state. Upon installation of the military government, Ejoor was the most senior military officer in the eastern region. Ejoor, as the most senior military officer in the eastern region, made a broadcast announcing the new government and declaring himself as the military government's regional representative. However, Ejoor was swiftly redeployed to become the military governor of his native Midwestern region. In his new administrative role, Ejoor became known for his strictness, locking out the civil servants before publicly admonishing them in the main square in Benin City. Additionally, Ejoor was an ex-officio member of the Supreme Military Council, also being its only member from the Midwest. It was due to this office that Ejoor was able to later reveal that the Supreme Military Council had already privately decided to hold trials for the January Pusks. By the time of the counter-coup, one of the main grievances of the counter-coup plotters were the delayed trials. In the early morning of 29 July 1966, Ojukwu, then serving as military governor of the eastern region, called Ejoor to inform him of the mutiny in Abeokuta that set off the counter-coup. Unaware that the commander of the Ibadan-based 4th Battalion, John Akahan, was a key coup leader, Ejoor later called Akahan for an update. Akahan lied by claiming that his unit was completely normal, when in fact, troops of the 4th Battalion had surrendered the government house in Ibadan and would later kill both Agui Ironsi and Western Region Military Governor Adekunle Fajuyi. Hours later, as the full national picture of the counter-coup was understood, Ejoor addressed the few soldiers in Benin City. Unlike other major cities, Benin lacked a permanent military base, so the only soldiers were members of Ejoor's security detail, successfully pleading with his guards to remain peaceful. With no mutiny in the Midwest and the leading Puskists negotiating at Ikeja, Ejoor played a role in the negotiations via telephone, with the full talks ending in the emergence of Yakubu Gowon as military head of state. Although he continued in his position as governor, the post-coup turmoil led to significant unrest, most notably when the 4th Battalion troops in Benin City raided a prison holding detainees from the January coup attempt. The soldiers freed northern detainees and tortured Igbo prisoners to death. The raid led to a vehement but ultimately fruitless protest by Ejoor to Gowon. After surviving both coups, then Governor Ejoor remained in the Supreme Military Council under Gowon by 1967. As such, he was an Aburi meeting attendee and was involved in the primary discussions with Ojukwu. After the failure of the Aburi Accord and the breakout of the war, Biafran forces invaded the Midwest in August 1967 in an attempt to swiftly end the war. When capturing Benin City, a Biafran unit attempted to capture Ejoor in an assault on his residence, but he escaped and fled to Lagos. When Nigerian forces, led by Colonel Murtala, successfully counterattacked, Murtala appointed Major Samuel Ogbonmudia as the military administrator of the Midwest. Although Muhammad made this decision unilaterally without the consent of his superiors, Ogbonmudia remained in office. Lieutenant Colonel David Ejoor hardly settled into any new role when a counter-coup of July 1966 broke out. This coup, led by northern soldiers, led to the death of many soldiers of the then eastern region. Soon the tensions of the coup degenerated into a civil war. He was a consistent voice of moderation and peace. Before and during the early period of the war, Ejoor was the only proponent, one of Nigeria among the then 4 regional governors. As governor of the Midwest region, which he had a significant Igbo population, his military colleagues of the Midwest region, except 2, were all Igbo. So there was a conspiracy to get rid of him. Help from the Federal Army was not forthcoming, and the invading Biafran force overran his base in Benin. He survived 3 assassination attempts. Foreshadowing that his capture in Benin would lead to the death of many innocents, Ejoor disguised as a priest and rode a bicycle all the way from Benin, Edo State, to Ebo Orogun, Delta State, from which he made contact and maneuvered to the Federal Military Headquarters in Lagos. In 1968, he assumed duties as the first Nigerian commandant of the Nigerian Defense Academy, Kaduna. After the war, he became a general in 1971 and in the same year, achieved the military equivalent of a PhD from the Royal College of Defense Studies in the United Kingdom. He reached the apex military career when he was appointed as Chief of Staff in January 1972 when Shagari became president.
Security issues now. Former Chief of Army Staff Major General David Ejoor has been laid to rest in Delta State. Military top brass, the governors of Edo and Delta states, as well as former head of state General Yakubu Gowon, were amongst dignitaries who paid tribute to the late military chief.
Ejoor died in Lagos on 10th February 2019. He was 87. Thanks for watching this video, guys. I would really love to know your thoughts on the life of Major General David Ejoor and how he escaped the whiskers of death and his bold attempts to resist the plot. Please let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Don't forget to smash a like and subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification button to get more content like this about African history. It's been Nando from Afriverse Historic. See you in the next one.